this battle, we're taking on Jack. And this is actually not the first or second time, but the third time we're actually taking him on. And as you can see, I have a pretty new team as I actually explored in the previous episode. And he also has made some changes which are actually quite intimidating. Like he has a Conkeldurr now, a Serperior, and I mean it looks like a new Charizard. I guess the rest and chalk specs too. Like really, he has changed up his team quite a lot, and it looks a lot more intimidating than mine's. I mean, I'd say mine's is pretty intimidating, but like you can see that I don't have that many like OU or any of that really, to be honest. So, anyways, I decided to leave with Sizers. I predicted him expecting my Glalie, and that was a really good move because he actually starts with Conkeldurr. So that really works out pretty good in my favor. I decide that I may as well get off a U-turn just so I can get into something good, and I'm happy he goes for a Mach Punch there instead of anything else because he had potential to be pretty scary with that. And then after that, I decided that I'll probably go into Florges because the rest of my team could actually take some pretty big damage. And I guess Toxapex would have been my other really good play, but you got to consider that Conkeldurr is literally just a wall breaker, so you really don't want to mess around with it. And considering that his priority move is Mach Punch, I didn't think he would have Bullet Punch or something that could outspeed and be scary to me, which is why I attacked. And I'm surprised he stayed in. I was expecting him to switch out, but that's good because now we don't have to worry about Conkeldurr anymore, and that can be a very scary Pokemon. So next up he goes into Serperior. It's pretty predictable what he's gonna do. He's probably gonna just go for a Leaf Storm and try to get a sweep going down. So I was thinking, well, Florges is kind of a special tank, so I may as well try and waste his PP because you gotta consider that Leaf Storm only has 5 uses. So there is one wasted right there, which is great. And then after that, I was thinking, well, I could go into Toxapex and then start going for Haze. I was also looking at Heliolisk just to see if I had anything super effective. So I know that I think I can outspeed him with Heliolisk. So I was considering that. Tyrantrum was something I was thinking about, but then I was like, nah, actually, because Tyrantrum doesn't even resist Leaf Storm, so it's probably going to get two-shotted by it. So I figured that Toxapex is probably the best play. So I really don't want this Serperior getting out of hand. And I remember my friend who ran Serperior, Bounty, he used to run a Z move with it too, so that he could properly wall break to anything that could actually resist it. And I'm glad that this guy, he didn't have that set up on his Serperior. So he went for Leaf Storm, I went for Haze, just so I could shut down his boost. And then after that, I was going to do it again because you got to remember with Toxapex, I have the ability Regenerator, so I can just switch out and gain back a lot of my HP, so I can go back to where I left off, and I can afford to just take damage and also waste his PP. Now he only has 2 Leaf Storms left, so I go for another Haze, and now it's time for me to switch out because there's really just no practicality in staying in and taking in another hit. And I think eventually he starts to figure out what I'm doing. I don't think he realized that at the start, but he does start to display his his wisdom here by going for an energy ball to conserve his PP. And that really did no damage to my Florges, so that gave me the opportunity to go for a Wish. And now he's probably a bit scared, so I can really do whatever I want to right here. So he goes for a Leaf Storm, thinking, well, he only has one more left, so I may as well try and race that up I can. And I decided to go into Toxapex because I can just use Haze and try and just get off one more Haze. Like if I get one more off, then he can't double stack, and that will be pretty good. And I'm glad he didn't go for Leaf Storm there. So if he did, he probably would have been able to actually knock out my Toxapex, and it kind of ruined my strategy. But I was able to get in and safely land a Haze while he went for Protect, which is perfect. So now I think he only has 1 Leaf Storm left, or maybe he has no more left. I don't really remember. I think he might just have 1 left, so I can kind of just do whatever I want to now because he doesn't have the ability to sweep me anymore, since once he uses his Leaf Storm, all he's got is a boosted energy ball, and that's not gonna carry through the rest of my team, including my Sizer, which has a 4 times resistance to it. So his Serperior wasn't really gonna serve him any purpose in this battle now that I shut it down. So I go into Florges. I'm thinking I could go into Wish and then go into something else and maybe start getting some damage off, or I could also just heal up my Florges. That is at pretty low HP. So right here, as you can see, just go for the wish. He goes for an energy ball, which actually brings me really low. But now I got the wish off, so I'm guaranteed to get the HP back as long as I protect. Although that is pretty predictable, but I'm fine really at this point. I just need the practicality rather than the predictability. So, you know, I'm fine with him switching out. He goes into Cresselia, which is alright because that really isn't much of a threat to my team specifically. Like, I have a lot of Pokemon that can just really scare it away. So I see this as a good opportunity to go into Scizor. I was thinking about Toxapex, but I was like, actually, he might have a Psychic type attack. So Scizor will just hard counter Cresselia every time, unless he has a new type of coverage attack. But normally it's like Moonblast and Psychic, none of which will do anything to Scizor at all. So he goes for Toxic, actually, which is fine. I mean, the worst thing he could have done is probably setting up some screens or something like that. So I get this free U-turn off. He goes into Charizard, which has potential to be scary, but you can actually see that on this specific team I've actually built in a core now where it's Scizor and Heliolisk, and I really like Heliolisk for this because it's actually quite a good Pokemon, has enough speed to outspeed most of the base 100 Pokemon, which are normally really scary, and it has Volt Switch and a good amount of coverage too. So with choice bags, I can just be switching back and forth between Heliolisk and Scizor. You gotta consider that even if it's resisted damage, it's still gonna be doing damage nonetheless, and I'll have enough synergy to get into whoever I want to when I want to. So he goes into Serperior, and now I actually could go into Scizor if I wanted to. Although I was thinking, well, I may as well try something different because after a while he might probably try and formulate a strategy against it. So I was thinking that Glalie might be a good play here because I got the opportunity to set up my spikes, and that's what I really want at this moment, so that all his switching will also have some consequences. That's one thing I like too. With entry hazards, the U-turn Wall Switch core would be really good. So I go into Glalie on his Serperior, and I think he was probably expecting me to go for an ice type attack of some sort, but I just wanted to get spikes up, and I'm glad that he didn't really act too much on this because I was able to get a free layer of spikes, which is great. And instead what he goes for is substitute, probably, or no, not substitute. I think he went for protect, probably because he was predicting something. So I get the first layer of spikes up right here, and I don't think he really had much to counter it either, which is really nice because even if he got a substitute up, all he could do is really just rely on energy ball, and that's not gonna save him against the rest of my tanks like Florges and Toxapex. So I go for a body slam on his substitute, which does pretty good damage and kind of nullifies it. So now it's pretty predictable he's gonna switch out, but I was thinking if he goes into Charizard, body slam is still gonna do big damage, and I don't want to go for Earthquake. Now Scizor was the potential Pokemon that could be scary, but I was fine taking the risk of you know, him going to Scizor because body slam would still do good damage and potentially paralyze him. So I land the body slam. I mean, it actually does a little bit worse than I expected, but it's fine. Now I know he's gonna go for U-turn, so I was thinking about going into Scizor, but actually in hindsight I really regret this because I probably shouldn't have stayed in. It was quite predictable. Most people who have Scizor are just gonna go for U-turn when they get the chance to, because you know it's big damage, it works on switches, it just you can't really go wrong with it. So then he gets in his Charizard, and this is what I regret, because if I had stayed into Glalie, I probably could have been able to shut this down to an extent. I definitely do need to get the Jolly Nature on him later on though. But Charizard is a very dangerous Pokemon, and I mean, normally he runs Charizard Y, so that's what I was kind of expecting, and I was just really praying it wasn't Charizard X, because you can look at my team, nothing on my team can really handle Charizard X at all. Like I just completely weakened to it. So I go into Tyrantrum because if he's got Charizard Y, I can take all of his hits pretty well. But unfortunately, he has a Charizard X, and that means that my life is not going to be on the line. Like I really cannot do anything against this guy. And you know, he goes for his Dragon Dance. I'm like, oh shoot. And you know, now the thing with some Charizard X's is that they have different types of movesets. Some will probably just run the dual stab combination of Fire and Dragon, then they'll have Roost and Dragon Dance. Some will just be an all-out attacking variation where they have Earthquake, Dragon Dance, Dragon Claw and Flare Blitz, and I wasn't sure what this was, but if he had the all-out attacking variation, I was gonna be screwed. Now, after a post-game like interview with this guy, he actually did share that he had the all-out attacking variation. So really at this point, you know, I said GG. I knew it was probably gonna be over for me, and I just pray that he doesn't have Dragon Claw. He does. It's pretty brain dead not to run Dragon Claw. I mean, actually, you probably could, because you know, like, Dragon is only super effective against Dragon types, but it's just a really reliable secondary stab attack that you can just get good damage off of. So unfortunately, he had it with him, and even if he didn't, if he had Earthquake, that would still probably one-shot my Tyrantrum. So now I have to figure out what I was gonna do, or who I was gonna sack, to be honest. And I can't really even PP stall this guy because I'm not gonna be taking his hits well enough for that to be effective. So I go into Toxic X, and I decided to go for a Haze. That's really the best thing I can do in this situation. Toxic isn't gonna shut him down fast enough. Scald, I can't burn it. He's a fire type, so there's no point of that either. And somehow I lived it. I was surprised that I did. I thought I was gonna get one-shotted by Earthquake, but maybe it's not that surprising because Toxic X is actually quite a tank, and the Earthquake was non-stab after only +1, so it's probably not gonna be huge. But, you know, for most of my Pokemon, like Heliolisk, that's definitely going to be enough to one-shot because it doesn't have any defense. So, I was thinking, well, I could go into Heliolisk now because he no longer has his boost. But I was thinking, well, actually, Florges might be the better play here because I could probably take his physical attacks good enough, and then I could just rely on hitting him hard enough with my Moonblast. So that's what I decided that I was gonna do. But I also like drew all my Pokemon just to see like if any of them had any potential solutions, and none of them did, because you gotta consider that either they get outsped and one-shotted, or they just won't do anything. Like Scizor, even though I have Bullet Punch, that's not gonna do anything to Charizard X, which has pretty decent defenses, if not really good ones. At least better than Standard and Charizard Y, and then in addition it's resisted, so now that wouldn't be fun. So I decided to go into Florges on this man, and he probably, you know, it's most likely going to go for Earthquake just to finish off the Toxic X. So that was good. That was a good switch in. And really, if he wanted to, and if he was smart, he probably would have gone for Flare Blitz here and just taken care of my Florges, or he could have even just go for another Dragon Dance. And I was expecting him to expect me to go for a Wish or something, so I decided to just get off another Moonblast on this guy. And that actually did really good damage. I'm pretty happy with Florges' contribution. I thought it was going to be useless because it really isn't the best on the physical side, but it did what it needed to do, which is good enough. And that's enough to take care of my Florges. So next up, I go into Glalie. Now, in this moment, I was thinking it really just depends on what this guy does. Like if he has Flare Blitz, then I'm going to be in big trouble. And even then, he could probably use Dragon Claw to take care of my Glalie. So if he got rid of my Glalie, that would be GG, because Earthquake, it's enough to take care of the rest of my team, probably. So I go for Earthquake. I'm just taking my chances, see if I live. I already kind of accepted the fact that I'm probably going to lose this battle. But, and like really, all you have to do is go for Flare Blitz. Most of them have Flare Blitz. Even if he didn't, he could go for Dragon Claw and actually probably take care of me if he needed to. So I go for the Earthquake. Like I said, I can't do much. But then he goes for Earthquake, and it doesn't do enough damage. I think he was trying to conserve his HP with Flare Blitz. I mean, I still don't see why he didn't just go for Dragon Claws. That definitely would have taken care of Glalie. But now he managed to live. Somehow, we are alive and still in the battle, which is crazy. Now, even though we are still alive, you gotta consider that half of my team is practically crippled now. But that's not really the worst thing, because my Toxic X is actually at really good HP levels right now. And that is kind of like my defensive core, along with my offensive Pokemon. So I'm glad to have that available. And I expected him to go for a prediction, because normally I would just go into Scizor on the U-turn. That's what he would probably do too. So he actually goes for Super Power, predicting the Scizor, but I managed to get into Toxic X, which is a really good read, because now he can't get my Scizor out of the game. And now if we probably did land a Super Power, I think he might have won this game, but luckily he didn't. So Next up, I go into Sizer. I'm surprised he didn't just go for another U-turn there, as even though his defense and attack got lowered, he probably still could have got some extra chip damage off on that switch, but that's fine. It really probably would have mattered that much anyways. So I get my Sizer in on the Cresselia, and that's really a really good matchup right here, because he can't do anything against my Sizer with Cresselia. Maybe he could, but it's not going to be significant enough to be a good trade-off for a U-turn to the face. So I get the free U-turn off, and he actually sacrifices his Serperior. Not really a bad move though, because I don't know exactly what Serperior could do to an extent, because it kind of got shut down by my Florges and Toxapex. So I get rid of that, which is great. And now I have to figure out who I want to go into next. And I was probably taking Heliolisk, because even if he goes into Sizer, it won't be a big issue, because like all the Sizer can do is Bullet Punch, and that's not going to be a huge problem, because I'm pretty sure I can take that good enough. And I could probably take two Bullet Punches, or maybe just one, but it would survive nonetheless. That's the point. So that was fine. He actually goes into Cresselia on this. I'm thinking, well, that's alright, I'll just get a Walt Switch off on this man, and that didn't really do that great damage, because I guess Cresselia is a pretty specially defensive Pokemon, but even then that is pretty weak. But I go into Sizer on his Cresselia. I see this as another free opportunity. He goes for Toxic. I don't know what he was taking here, so I would not want to stay in on especially defensive Pokemon like Cresselia with my Heliolisk. So I mean, that was great, because I get another free attack, and now I predict him going to something different. So I go for the knockoff, and that is great, because it does huge damage to the Toxapex. Really the best move I could have done in that situation, because the rest of my attacks get resisted by him. So now I gotta figure out what I want to do, and I'm thinking, well, he's probably gonna go for Recover now, because his Toxapex is pretty weakened, and in addition, like, you know, I don't think he's gonna go for Toxic, because like, why would you do that on Sizer? That's just risky, especially because you're at pretty low HP. And then in addition, I will also include that if he goes for Scald, that's actually just gonna be fine, because I got Dry Skin on Heliolisk, which means it's basically Water Absorb, except I take super effective damage from Fire type attacks. So he goes into Sizer, and I get the Walt Switch off and get rid of it, which is really good. So now he's in a bad situation. He just has Toxapex and Cresselia left, both of which are, you know, weak to something on my team. So I decide I may as well go into Glalie, because it's going to have a pretty good matchup against either Toxapex or Cresselia. So I have Earthquake for Toxapex, and I have Explosion on Cresselia. So he goes into Cresselia, which is actually what I would have preferred, because I was thinking, well, you know, I could just go into Heliolisk and then just go for my Choice Banded T-Ball. So I explode on his face. It's enough to one-shot the Cresselia, which is really nice. That's one benefit of Glalie. So if you really needed to, you can just explode and just do huge damage to any tank. And even though that takes yourself out, it's fine. Like it's like kind of like a sacrifice almost. So now he just has Toxapex left, and this is really GG. No matter what he does, he's gonna take he's not taking 2 T-Balls without dying. So he goes for a Baneful Bunker. Unfortunately, the game is glitched, but that probably wouldn't matter anyways, because he's not gonna survive the T-Ball. So he forfeits, and that is GG. That was a great game.